All right, good evening and welcome. Thank you so much for y'all for being here. As y'all know, this is our monthly hub call, our All Democrats call, and we've got an interesting agenda. We're going to do a candidate spotlight here shortly with our House District 70 legislative candidate, Andrew Cade Eberly. And then we're going to, kind of have a focus on healthcare here in our state and some of the things that have happened, some of the things that are changing, and things that are a concern. And we're going to have Camille Richoux talk to us about that and kind of what our way ahead is. And then also we will, at the end of that, have a Q&A which I think is great because it gives us an opportunity for our folks here to ask questions and whether they have them about the policies and legislation that we discuss sometimes or with our candidates. And so please, we appreciate y'all being here. So next slide, please. We don't need to look at the slide. That's me. So we call this the hub call for some of y'all that may or may not be familiar with it. Like I said, it's our all Democrats call, but it's called the hub, and we get that from next slide, please. Uh, the way this forum started out, Senator Mark Pryor put together a place where there'd be a monthly online gathering for people to talk about issues that are of concern to Democrats and independents and talk to candidates and current events. And it got to be a bigger project than which is a good thing. It grew pretty well, and from that, we as the state party, have a good relationship with Senator Pryor. We took this on because we were looking for an opportunity to engage with folks across the state, and so we've been running this as our All Democrats hub call now for about 6 months. And again, we do this on the third Tuesday of every month. It is our opportunity to get people together to talk about issues that are of concern to us. Um, and so we're um, very excited about it. The idea is that we're not just talking about what's in the news and getting angry. We're empowering people with information for them to take action. And so because of that, we're very glad that y'all are here and that we have an opportunity to do that. Next slide, please. A couple things I want to talk about. Um, First and foremost, in case you missed it, although if you follow us on social media, we hope you saw it. I know that at least on Instagram, we had 16, 17,000 people that reacted to this initial post. Um, for those of you that are familiar with the issue, we have had a lawsuit against our governor and our Secretary of State that was initiated in October. And that lawsuit was around compelling the governor to set the dates for the special election for House District 70. So we initially won that in the trial court. We got a writ of mandamus that compelled the governor to set those dates, although she only did that after we had an additional motion to hold her in contempt. But the governor, through the attorney general, continued to fight that fight, and it has been in front of the Supreme Court now for a while. In recent, like last week, um, the justices were set to hear it, and we're actually supposed to hear arguments in person, oral arguments, this Thursday. But the decision was made that they would only take motions and briefs. And as part of that, one of the justices recused herself, and the governor took the opportunity to appoint her own justice to hear a case in which she is a party. And so we filed a motion along also House District, the suit for House District 26. They additionally filed a different kind of motion, but another one. And the Supreme Court made the decision that to to end the proceedings, to uphold the lower court's ruling. And so that's an awfully big explanation to do exactly what you see there on the screen, and that is to say that we won. And so after much work and a lot of work by our incredible legal team. We in fact did check the governor's her overreach, as I like to say, uh, and and uh, and so we're very proud of that. We're very proud of that we held her to account, that we stood up for voters in House District 70 and Arkansans all across the state, and that by doing that, ultimately for us, it means that we were able to hold that special election, and that I think he's on here, that Representative Alex Holladay. Uh, I don't know if you can call it a landslide, but I'm going to call it a landslide. Um, Won that in a very handy fashion, and so this is to say that we won that, and we're very proud to announce that. In case y'all missed it on in the media and on social media. And as always, these things ain't cheap. So if you're interested in supporting, so we can continue our voter protection activities and also help us pay our legal team that did great work, there's a QR code there that will link you to our legal fund to help cover that. So we're very excited about that opportunity, though, to say that we finally won. And I think this is finally the last picture of me that's in the deck. I promise. All right. So I will tell you that moving into our one of our guests this evening, our candidate highlight, Andrew Cade Eberly. Uh, he's going to be on here in just a second, but I will say that I'm very proud, uh, to announce him. Um, he he and I did a lot of campaigning together when I ran before. He is like me, a veteran. He is also a veteran candidate. This is his second time running in House District 67. And not only that, I will say that when he ran in 2024, this was the second closest race that a Democrat didn't win. And now that Alex has won in House District 70, that makes this the closest race that we can project. And so we're excited to have him here to talk about his race, to talk about the district that he's running in, and then also I think to talk a little bit about hospitals and healthcare, because there is some policies that we have in our state that have had a significant impact into District 67, and I know that that is an issue specifically that he has taken on, and is a plank in the platform that he is carrying forward for us as Democrats. And so, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ace for him to talk to us a little bit about his campaign and what we can all do to support. So, sir, to you, please.
Well, thank you for having me on to come talk. I think this is my second time getting to come speak on the hub, and it's always great to get to connect with leaders all across the state and let them know what's going on in Democratic politics across Arkansas, um, as well as my district and the healthcare outcomes that are currently affecting it. So a little bit about me. As you can tell by the slide, my name is Andrew Cade Eberly. My initials spell ACE. You can feel free to call me that. I'm 27. I'm a husband. I am an Army veteran and a cybersecurity professional. And I will also be the first Generation Z representative in Arkansas history. And I'm running because the fundamental idea of the American dream is rooted in social mobility, that you can work hard and get ahead and provide a better future and opportunity for your children. For my generation, it is completely out of reach unless you're really born into it, or at least that's how it appears. Um, the social contract of the middle class in Arkansas feels, and really across the nation, is feeling like it's being torn up. And I just want to run to represent my district, to bring more opportunity and more, better outcomes for people all across my district, as well as to be a bulwark against apathy and to drive up political participation within my generation. So if you go to the next slide, this district is just north of the district that we flipped in the special election during our primary season just a couple of months ago. That district lost by 3 points in 2024 and won by 16 points in the special election. I ran in 2024 and lost by 4 points. So I like the math and I like the odds that that lays out for us. But the reality of it is, as Marcus said, that this costs money. We're going to need resources. Our margin of victory, I tell people, is only going to be as large as the resources that we have behind our campaign to be able to get on people's doorsteps and to be able to get in their mailboxes to let them know about our campaign and the platform and things that we uh, need. This race was very close in 2024 and was decided by less than 210 votes. And it's one of the easiest pickup opportunities that we have here in Central Arkansas, and I think the state. The path to breaking the supermajority most assuredly runs through North Pulaski County, and I think the next step on that path runs right through my district. So I really want to take hold of that opportunity to be able to provide a non-supermajority Arkansas for the people who live here. On the next slide. So Jacksonville, we had a hospital here that closed on April 15th that actually opened its doors in 2023. I've got a dog here that's very vocal. It opened its doors in 2023 and is already closed here in 2025. The reason why is directly linked to the healthcare decisions that our leaders are making at both a state and federal level and throwing people off of their Medicaid and Medicare access that are forcing hospitals all across our state to choose to either operate at a loss or to close their doors. And sadly, Jacksonville, which it I wouldn't call it rural. It's on the periphery of the Little Rock suburb area. It's starting to affect a lot of our more central places instead of our rural ones, which we've already been seeing a growing healthcare desert over the last couple of years. This decision also directly impacts our service members, especially here in Jacksonville. In Jacksonville, we have the Little Rock Air Force Base, which does not have an emergency room operating off of their base, just a general healthcare provider, and they relied on any event happening on the base and going to the Jacksonville emergency room to receive that critical care. And now that time from point of injury to receiving that life-saving care has grown not just for Jacksonville residents, but also for our service members here in the state. Not good. And on the last slide, it's just going to be how you can help, what could really help push our race across the finish line and flip another district on the path to breaking the supermajority is let people know that this campaign exists, what we're standing for, what we're fighting to accomplish for the people here, not in just Central Arkansas, but for across the state at writ large. And then also, if you can, chip in. I'm going to be a little brash, and if I could put a fundraising link in the chat, I'd like to do so, so that way you can have access to it, as well as, if not, you can reach out to me at 501-487-0272. That's my personal cell phone number, and get in contact with me, and I'll make sure to get you any resources. If you've got somebody in the district that would like to know about it, or if you'd like to volunteer yourself or provide any funds to the campaign or anything of that sort, it would be greatly appreciated. And I thank you guys so much. I just want to say another thank you to the DPA for allowing me the chance to come on and talk to you all about my race and the healthcare outcomes that we're currently experiencing here in Jacksonville.
Ace, thank you very much. I will. I'll say this: please do drop a fundraising link in there. One of the things that we all understand that running a race is not easy. Running a race without resources is more than not easy. It's impossible. And so, if you would please do that, I would encourage everybody to support if you can, and his race. And I'll always say this: the point that he made is very very clear that our breaking of the supermajority, it does run through northern Pulaski County. When you talk about how districts line up and the demographics of those, he mentioned it that the district he's running in 67 is adjacent to House District 70, which is also adjacent to 71. Those are three of the most competitive races that we have in the state. And those three House districts comprise the majority of Senate District 13. So each of them being competitive makes Senate District 13 competitive. And when we start to talk about, we just need to pick up a couple of Senate seats. We just need to pick up 6 House seats. All of that, people of my generation might say, all of that Tetris and how we link them together. That's the way that we can do this. That's the way where we can then have a much greater voice in our state legislature through breaking that supermajority. And so that's why one of the reasons we have him here, to talk about that race, is that it is a key race in what we've got to do to change the nature of our legislature here in Little Rock. So thank you very much. I truly appreciate you being here. We'll do a little Q&A here shortly, and if y'all have any questions about this race, we will do that here shortly. All right, next slide, if you would, please. All right, and I wanted to hit on this in between Ace and Camille speaking. And that was one of the things to talk about, is that, the Arkansas Democrat talks about, when we discuss the impacts of hospital closures across our state. 30 of Arkansas's 47 rural hospitals are at risk, and we can say it's directly tied to how our state has made decisions on healthcare policy and healthcare funding. And that is the kind of thing that affects the quality of life for all of us, but it also affects our prospects for the future growth of our state, and the future health of our citizens. The other thing I would point out is that the Jacksonville Hospital Unity Health that Ace talked about is one of 4 hospitals that have closed in recent months. Ouachita County Medical Center down in Camden, Levi Hospital in Hot Springs, and then also the labor and delivery at Baptist Health in Fort Smith have all closed in recent months. And we're starting to see across the rural parts of our state, we aren't just having healthcare deserts. We've got a significant impact of maternal healthcare deserts. And I think Camille's going to talk about some of that potentially. But these are things that have, a significant impact on just about every aspect of life here in our state. And so I'm going to turn it over now to Camille Richoux. She is the Director of Health Policy. And we highlight this because this was actually a great article that just came out. And I joked that how nice it must be to say something and they print something good that you said in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, because that doesn't always happen for me. But her point about maternal health doesn't just exist in a silo. We can be putting more resources toward maternal health and data collection. But if rural hospitals don't have labor and delivery that are struggling, that's the challenge. This is, it's great, and we are very excited to have her here to talk about, what this means in our state and potentially our way ahead, and then also to have a Q&A with her about policy here in just a moment. So I'm going to turn it over to Camille Richoux. Thank you very much for being here, ma'am.
Absolutely. And don't worry, I've got plenty of off the cuff hot takes that have been published across media as well. So, hi everybody. I'm Camille Richoux. I'm the Health Policy Director at Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families. Thank you for inviting me. It's after 5, so I'm going to be a little more casual than I might normally be during office hours. But for those of you who know me, that probably tracks. So If you're not familiar with Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families, I'm sure many of you are. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit advocacy organization working to improve the lives of kids and families in the state of Arkansas. We do that through multi-issue advocacy on healthcare, education, family and economic security, hunger, all that kind of things that we use to build kids into strong and healthy adults. And a little bit about me, so we can get to know each other better in this kind of one-way transaction. So I am, you could probably tell by my last name, I'm from South Louisiana originally, but I grew up in South Arkansas in Camden, where my local hospital just filed for bankruptcy and closed down. I grew up in Camden, and it's very cool working for Advocates because a lot of basically every program that Advocates has championed over the years, I am a benefactor of everything from Head Start to public education to Medicaid through Our Kids First. So it's really great to be able to do this advocacy work for future generations. And I also have real skin in the game on this. When I was a teenager, my family filed for bankruptcy due to medical debt, which is the leading cause of bankruptcy in the US. And so this is something that's going to impact us. And I've been saying a lot lately that my job is kind of professionally bumming people out, but I hope that I can provide maybe some helpful information about both hospitals and the larger kind of health system as a whole, give you some tools for your own work. And I'm also happy to follow up with anybody, whether it's training around Medicaid, how different parts of the health system work, anything that I can do to be helpful in a nonpartisan educational way, of course. So I have a couple of visuals I just want to show. And so I think some of these might be helpful in your own communities. Am I able to share my screen? Perfect. All right. So if you've never been to the Advocates website, we currently, our economic policy director, Pete, helped put together some maps using some data that we all kind of collaborated on. And we have these really excellent maps around what is coming for Arkansas counties and for those running for office, legislative districts. So I'd be happy to share kind of links to this, but if you go to the Arkansas Advocates, aradvocates.org website, you can see countdown to cuts, then mapping the cuts. It's all there. So you can actually see down to the House and Senate district how many dollars are expected to be lost due to HR 1, aka the One Big Beautiful Bill. I just want to throw these out there because they can be really useful to how you talk about healthcare and what communities stand to lose. We also have the SNAP dollars lost for each House district as well. Happy to answer. I think we're going to do questions at the end, but I can make sure that I follow up and send all these links. So if you don't know, about a third of healthcare spending in the US is hospital-related care. It's a really major source of expenditures. About 70% of rural hospitals in Arkansas are operating at a loss. Again, the causes of those it's a multi-issue thing. It's losses on patient services, staggering reimbursement rates. If you don't know, Medicaid pays a lower reimbursement rate than private insurance. So what you have is if you have a community where more folks are insured through Medicaid, like rural Arkansas, you make less money, you get reimbursed, providers make less on those patients. So sometimes actually taking Medicaid patients in large amounts, you can actually operate on a loss. You can actually lose, you can not even break even sometimes with those Medicaid reimbursement rates. And to kind of give you an example of this on reimbursement rates, the first increase in dental reimbursement rates happened this last session. and they had not had an increase in about 20 years. So they were working both on a lower reimbursement rate for Medicaid and also a reimbursement rate that was before the Affordable Care Act was even passed. So, and I also want to just set us up as we're talking about this. Here are our birthing hospitals in Arkansas. We've just experienced the closure of additional ones, including my hometowns. So we have 31 labor and delivery service hospitals or centers now in Arkansas. It is important to kind of give ourselves a kind of backwards look at this, is that we've been protected over the past several years because we are a state that expanded Medicaid. States around us who did not expand experienced many more hospital closures over the past 15 years. Until the last couple of years, we hadn't experienced kind of any. So we've kind of been protected in some ways in Arkansas. I often these days feel like the scientist at the beginning of the Godzilla movie who's like running into the room with loose papers and is just like, Godzilla's about to come and, attack the city. But it does kind of feel like that we've been a little, we haven't seen some of the canaries in the coal mine. I do want to talk a little about what some of those maybe canaries are. We're going to be coming out pretty soon with our annual finish line report. That's a report that I write around uninsurance trends for kids and families. We also release our kids count data book. And just to kind of show you the trend over the years, we had record lows of child uninsurance in our state a decade ago. We have lost almost all of that progress over the past decade. The child uninsurance rate has doubled since 2016 is kind of the big takeaway. We are losing progress on insurance coverage. And what we know is that kids insurance is a reflection of families and parents. So there's something called the welcome mat effect. When you have parents who are insured, their kids are more likely to be insured. And the vice versa is true. When you have uninsured parents, you're more likely to have kids going without coverage as well. So it's kind of this combination of low reimbursement rates, high administrative costs, and maybe some higher executive and insurance pay, whereas your providers, your actual medical staff, everyone from nurses to technicians, are not able to be compensated. You're not able to keep them, especially in small rural hospitals where you have fewer patients. And then you have increasing amounts of people who are losing their insurance. That results in uncompensated care. People don't go to preventative care. They only go to the emergency room. Our family is very familiar with being uninsured and only having the emergency room for care. And I'm giving all of this information before we've even discussed kind of HR1. So we've got this already struggling healthcare system that, it's harder to get people insured. Reimbursements aren't keeping up with the cost of healthcare. And now we have the incoming HR1. I'm not going to go through everything on here, but I do want to at least talk a little bit about, the numbers side, kind of larger in the health system. So again, HR1, One Big Beautiful Bill, you're probably pretty familiar with this already, but passed last year. We're estimating that millions of people in the US are going to lose access to Medicaid, to SNAP benefits. There's a huge community impact there because SNAP is it generates economic activity. We also know that there are more than 220,000 people insured through our Medicaid expansion. They're totally in Medicaid. About 900,000 Arkansans are insured through any Medicaid program. That's kids and adults. So Medicaid touches everything in this state. It's a really good deal for Arkansas. For those of you who don't know, our Medicaid expansion, 90% of it is paid for by the federal government. We make up the other 10%. And then we have another 138,000 Arkansans who are able to use the marketplace because of the Affordable Care Act. We know that those numbers are down because of HR 1 ending the enhanced premium tax credits, basically the tax credit that made purchasing insurance more affordable. We've already seen huge declines after open enrollment this past year. HR 1 also took eligibility for Medicaid and marketplace coverage away from a lot of legally present immigrants. It didn't, in fact, impact undocumented immigrants at all who are already not eligible for Medicaid, with the exception of some limited OB coverage for pregnancy. And so I'm bumming people out for a living. I can't talk about hospital closures and the healthcare system without talking about work requirements. We know that Arkansas was the first to test this out. During the few months that it was in effect, about 18,000 people lost coverage. More than 90% of them should not have lost coverage, and because they were either compliant or because they should have had an exemption for a chronic health condition. It is not going to be as straightforward this time. Last time when work requirements were in effect, federal Medicaid statutes were not aligned with it, and so they were able to stop it in the courts. That is now no longer the case now that HR 1 has been passed. So a lot of what I have been doing at Advocates has been following the process and trying to mitigate the damage of what's going to happen with work requirements, because thousands of Arkansans are expected to lose coverage. And we know that people losing insurance is a ripple effect. Again, more uncompensated care, more people utilizing emergency care, and then the hospitals having to eat those costs of that type of care. Then you have fewer people going to get preventative care and routine doctor care, routine sick care. So you've just got this destabilizing of the entire healthcare system that's going to be happening. And again, I know that that's not the funnest information. We've been doing a lot of advocacy around this. Like I said, I'm not going to go through our entire presentation, and I'm going to try to stop screen sharing if I can. Oh, friends. See, this is the after 5. Okay, here we go. Am I no longer sharing? Hopefully not. Am I still sharing? One of our technical people.
You are still screen sharing.
I am still screen sharing? That's so weird. I'm trying to stop screen sharing. Oh, here we go. I found the button. Apologies, y'all. For some reason, my screen was looking a little weird. So I know that was just a ton of information that I threw at you, but I wanted to just kind of set the stage that like things have been not ideal for the past couple of years, and there's been these canaries in the coal mine of this increasing uninsurance slowly creeping, providers struggling more. We're starting to see those cracks with the closures of some of these hospitals. And then starting next year, when work requirements go into effect, there are some potential rule changes that were just announced with insurance on the 12th by our state insurance department about a potential reduction of benefits for our home Medicaid expansion enrollees, that the result is going to be fewer providers being able to, stay above water, more people with increased healthcare costs, more medical debt, and more people uninsured. That is not a way to build a healthy community. It impacts all of us. Now, South Arkansas, where I live, is now a maternal health desert. There's no labor and delivery for the surrounding counties, and that I think El Dorado may be one of the only area labor and delivery options, which if you are a pregnant person with needing prenatal care, Transportation's a huge barrier there, and we've just increased the amount of distance that one has to travel. So I want to pause there because I don't know how long we have on this call. So I'm happy to take any questions, provide any support or follow-up resources anybody might need. So thank you.
Well, first off, Camille, thank you very much. And I think we can, based on my watch, we've still got about 25 minutes in the call. And so we could probably do 20 minutes worth of questions or however much works for everybody.
Yeah, and I can
Between
go
you
more
and
into
Ace.
depth if anybody wants to dig into anything.
I will say I appreciate it. And the other thing I would say is for any candidate or anybody who's running for anything who may also be on the call, the resources that she showed are the exact type of things that that are available when y'all start to talk about messaging. You start to talk about what how you campaign and what you need to do. And then the other thing I would say is that that's some of the same information and data that we as the party, as we are revising our platform now, look at and talk about when we work on that platform that'll be used by candidates and legislators over the course of the next couple of years is that type of information. So thank you very much for all of that. That's an incredible amount of detail and amazing amount of research that y'all have done. So thank you. And we can open it up to questions. Mary, I saw your hand. I'm gonna hit the allow to talk button, okay? Mary, if you unmute, you should be able to talk.
Yeah, I think so. I always have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Does Arkansas have any disproportionate share hospitals that get more money because they have a high Medicaid rate? I come from Illinois and we had that there. Some hospitals were essentially 90% Medicaid, so they got better reimbursement.
Yeah, there are a lot of different programs that are like disproportionate share kind of providers that if you're in a medically underserved area, if you agree to take a certain amount of Medicaid patients, like there can be some incentives or kind of bonus. I don't know if bonus is the right word, but like incentive payments to take more Medicaid patients. A lot of that is from the federal government side, so it would have to be a lot of basically that's federal government investments. From our recent fiscal session, we know that the goal has been to keep budgets flat or to find cuts, not to invest further in healthcare. So it is much harder to get that revenue on the state side.
So there isn't enough to make any difference to any hospitals. Probably.
I won't claim to be the foremost kind of hospital revenue expert, but it doesn't solve kind of the problem of that we're seeing with patient. And some of that is if you have a specialist, and specialists, make much higher incomes. If you're a, cardiologist or neurologist, there simply are not enough patients in some parts of the state for a hospital to have a full-time neurologist, depending on the amount of patients you're seeing. That's why you'll have traveling specialists. There are some ways that we can deal with the realities of like, you may not be able to have a full-time neurologist at your small rural hospital, but how do we, leverage telehealth and other kind of technologies to get access to patients where they are. So there are lots of ways that we can invest to make sure that those providers are still available. But in terms of just patient volume and patient reimbursement, like the margins, I've got somewhere one of our maps actually with our advocates on our advocates website actually shows, you can click every hospital, you can see how in the red it is. So you can actually look wherever you are in the closest hospital, and you can see whether it's, making a net positive or whether it is fully in the red. A lot of hospitals in South Arkansas and the Delta are some of those, but you would be surprised that, even hospitals that you think of much better funding, like UAMS, are also still struggling plenty. And UAMS is a safety net hospital, so they have to take patients regardless of their ability to pay and insurance, and those are really important. But making sure they're able to provide those services is really important.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
All right,
These are questions.
Alyssa, I just unmuted you for you to be able to talk.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I've lived in Arkansas quite a long time. And I remember, I think it was Hillary Clinton that started ARC Kids First. Whatever happened to that program? Weren't all children in Arkansas eligible to have health insurance?
So our Kids First is Hillary Clinton was one of the champions of the Children's Health Insurance Program, which was expanded in 1997 in Arkansas. So our Kids First is our Medicaid program, and that's how I was insured as a kid after 1997. And it does not cover all families. It covers families with up to, I believe it's 250% of the federal poverty level for your household. So it does cover, it actually has a higher kind of income limit than for the average adult, which is 138% of the federal poverty level. And it covers roughly half of kids in the state. So it is a really important source of health insurance. But it is not universal coverage if for every child. I think that current numbers are about 10% of Medicaid or Our Kids First eligible kids are not currently enrolled. And so there are lots of kids who should have Our Kids First that due to various barriers are not enrolled. But it is a really important program. You may have heard of Our Kids Part A and B. Our Kids A is for the lowest income families, and then Our Kids Part B is for those in that slightly higher income range, up to 250%. And there are some slight co-pays there, like $10 co-pays for visits, things like that, just on that kind of sliding scale between those programs.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, there was another question. This is from Carol Egan, and she typed it in. Someone mentioned in the House Legislative Committee that Arkansas has the lowest Medicaid reimbursement rates in the country, and that this rate is based on the Medicare reimbursement rates, which are also the lowest in the country. Do you know if that's accurate?
I believe that was that is accurate. There are a couple of areas where that may not be exactly the same. My first thought is OB payments, only because we did increase some reimbursement rates. So I would need to double check if like our OB rates are still the lowest in the nation. But we do have some of the lowest Medicaid reimbursement rates, yes. And Medicaid pays 20% less than private insurance per the law. So again, you're always making a little bit less. So those providers are important, but they almost have to like supplement it with private insurance patients. That's what happens when you have a piecemeal health system.
Excellent. I know there was another question and then the hand went down.
Yeah, feel free to throw anything. Only
Y'all can throw
questions
questions
I have
at
the
ACE
answer
too.
to, of course.
You can throw questions at ACE too.
I'm not as big as a healthcare expert as our other panelists.
You will be once you get in there, right?
Well,
Not
I don't
an
become the
endorsement as
expert. I go
advocates.
talk to the experts.
Trying to be very careful. Not gonna
Melissa, do you have your hand up again?
I do. Okay. So my other question is, you just said this is what happens when we have a piecemeal health insurance program. You know, I look at this in the bigger scheme of things, and how in the world are we going to fix this? And not only in the state level, but on the national level. And, you know, people are constantly bashing the ACA, but am I wrong to say that when the ACA was established, the Republicans did some things that made the ACA worse than it should have been? It didn't function like it should have on the outset because they had to make concessions to the Republicans. And one of them was the private healthcare, what do you call it, option. Am I wrong? And also, they wanted everyone to sign up on it, even young people, because they needed that in order for young to make it solvent and that to make it work. So I guess my question is does anybody out there have any ideas on how to fix this ridiculous mess?
These are all real fair questions. A lot of the decisions around the Affordable Care Act precede me, and my time as a professional. So some of this is my ACA historian piece. If you don't know, the Affordable Care Act is based off of Romney Care in Massachusetts. It was actually the expansion that Mitt Romney heralded. So this is not to necessarily bash the Affordable Care Act, but the Affordable Care Act, the function of it was basically at the time, moderate Republican approach to expanding healthcare. You have this full spectrum of options from single payer to this kind of like expansion with the marketplace. The goal was to try to create some competition to expand out Medicaid coverage to those under the poverty level. That is why, and there is not a good answer whenever people have attempted to repeal the Affordable Care Act and they're like, what are you going to replace it with? But there isn't really a good replacement. It was originally a kind of moderate Republican, Massachusetts Republican approach to healthcare reform. One of the things that was removed from the Affordable Care Act was the public option. There were a couple of Democrats who wouldn't vote for the Affordable Care Act, and so that was removed. There's been work over the years to try to advocate more for this public option, like the ability for individuals to buy into Medicare. The individual mandate was a key part of the Affordable Care Act because the way that insurance works is it's a pool and everybody lifts it up a little bit. So having younger, healthier people with fewer healthcare needs, presumably, spreads that risk out more. You don't, like when you have a bunch of sick people with a lot of healthcare needs, you have a really expensive healthcare system. So it kind of spreads that out. The individual mandate was found to be constitutional several years ago, and it is still technically part of the law, but the tax penalty for the individual mandate was dropped to zero in the 2017 tax cuts. So there are some issues, like part of the problem with the Affordable Care Act is that it didn't have a good way to control the cost, and the cost of healthcare just in general has increased over the years. But what you're seeing now, in my, I guess, expert-ish opinion, is this kind of effort to kind of death by a thousand cuts some of this progress between making it harder to get Medicaid with, work reporting requirements, and then things like marketplace coverage, making it harder to obtain, and then saying, it's when you starve a system and then say it failed. It is part of the issue. And I know that was maybe a little long-winded history, but there are lots of approaches to how we could fix the healthcare system and how you could build a better healthcare system. We are the only country in the developed world without a universal health system. I don't think I'm going to solve that here in Arkansas. I do think that having more people insured is really good. And so that needs to be the starting point for our conversations, is that when you have more people with coverage, you have a healthier health system, because you have people who are able to go to the doctor and providers who are able to get reimbursed for those services. So if we start with that, maybe we can build out from there.
All right, I see one last hand that is Mary, and then this is going to have to be potentially our last question because we're down to 11 minutes and we've got the calendar review and a couple things to cover at the end.
Okay,
Mary,
sorry.
yes, ma'am.
I'll try to make it quick. Ace, I have a question. We have a candidate here in District 3 that's running for the House. And statistically, her odds are not good, but we really want to make a good run. What would you suggest? Because I'm meeting with her and a couple other people tomorrow to kind of help her get on her way. What should she focus on, do you think? What do you think would be helpful?
So whenever I ran in 2024 in the district that I'm running for that's competitive this time around, I don't think was actually flagged as a key battleground point. It was on the menu, but it wasn't one of those key targeted districts where we could actually see that potential. So I can understand where this candidate comes from and that mindset. A lot of what we did on the ground to make sure that we actually move the needle and change the kind of ground on which we're approaching our voters is to just have conversations, whether that means going out to events and talking to voters directly. I think a lot of what helped in my district that hadn't been done in, I think, 2 decades before I ran for it was we ran a comprehensive ground game and going into the neighborhoods, going door to door, and getting on doorsteps and having those conversations with people. I can't tell you the amount of times that I knocked on a door and saw Fox News on in the background, but just because they were a veteran and I was a veteran, we were able to have a conversation beyond just what's the letter next to your name and keep moving forward. And I was able to walk away with their support and with their vote because we were able to get past that initial partisan barrier and just have a conversation about values and what direction we think the state needs to go in.
Well, the good thing is she's a veteran. And we're here in Baxter County, and there's a lot of veterans in Mountain Home. So we're hoping that that'll kind of help. So thank you.
Hey, Mary, if I may, real quick.
Yes.
And I say this because part of my ground game as a candidate was Ace, and part of Ace's ground game as a candidate was me. A couple of things that I would say that would be useful. Obviously we have data and analytic tools at the party, and so access to van, and again, one of the requirements is that the information in van is only as good as what gets put back into it by candidates, but access to that, and that's laid out in the training that she should have received for when she signed up to be a candidate, and it's ongoing via Zoom. Understanding the probable Democrat score is what we call it, setting that to understand who is in a neighborhood, and being able to go to those folks and target people that are Democrats that need to turn out. That would definitely be one of the things I would focus on, because that ground game that he is talking about is empowered by that information. And then being present, exactly what he said, being present in two places. I'm always talking about this with people, is that as Democrats, we got to normalize being a Democrat. You know what I mean? We have to.
I hear you. Yeah.
We have to make people understand that we're their friends and their neighbors, and the people that teach their children at school, and people they go to church with, and people that that they've known their entire lives. And part of that is being there, being out and talking about it. Being a veteran helps. There were many times, and again, I say I did this with Ace because he and I together, I don't know how many thousands of doors how many thousands of doorsteps we stood on together, and people would be shocked that two veterans are standing here talking about Democratic politics and asking someone to vote, and that's really that connection that they make, especially in Baxter County, especially in places that have a larger, that are more rural, and that do have something of an older and a more, maybe a more moderate or conservative group of people. They'll vote for somebody who is engaging them, and they'll vote for somebody who takes the time to ask for their vote.
Okay. Thanks, you guys.
Yes, ma'am. Camille, I saw you were answering questions on the Q&A. I think that's it. And so I will say to both of y'all, thank you so much. I thank you both for being here. Ace, thank you for talking about your campaign and everything you're doing. Camille, thank you so much for that. This is, you can tell people have a significant interest when you start talking about healthcare and healthcare policy, and it's important for all of us to understand it because it is something that our candidates and something that our party, it's definitely a plank in our platform, and this all informs that platform, but it's also a thing that is affecting Arkansans' lives, and that we're working hard as Democrats to make a difference in making this. We always say making this a healthier, safer, brighter state. And so, thank you so much for the information. A couple things coming forward, and we've only got a couple of minutes. Obviously, the next thing we have as a state party major event is our state convention. I think I see many of our delegates that are on, and so this is just a reminder. Uh, you know, we kicked that off with the chair's reception and the evening before, and then we've got a full agenda that in our convention. Few big things we expect coming out of that is obviously the approval of our platform, and which is I've talked a little bit about that, and then also the nomination of our statewide and federal candidates, and then a few other things. But so we've got a full agenda, and it is obviously state counties have turned in those delegate lists. If you are a delegate, please register. You've received an email that should have come from Christina that talks about registering. If you didn't get it, take a look in your spam folder. If not, give us a holler and we'll make sure we get it to you. And I see where we've also just dropped in that registration for delegates and guests into our chat here. So we're looking forward to seeing everybody. We're looking forward to the opportunity to get some work done for our party and set ourselves up going into the election cycle. So next slide, please. All right, these are not a comprehensive list of upcoming events, but these are the events that people have populated onto our calendar. If you're a candidate, if you are a county party, and you wish to get something onto our calendar, you do that through our website. And again, you will see the link for that was just dropped into chat. So the 31st, Sweatman for state senate. The volunteer kickoff is at 2. I talked a little bit about Allison. She's running for Senate District 13. That's exciting. The Hot Springs County Democratic Committee is 6 p.m. On June 2nd. It's not listed here, Mary, but I know you're going to ask me. I'm tracking that I'm going to be in Baxter County to talk to y'all as well in June. June 13th is our convention. We discussed that already. 23rd is the Carroll County Nonpartisan Civic Roundtable at the Carroll Electric Community Room. And then our Arkansas Democratic Black Caucus 22nd Annual King Kennedy Awards. And I think I saw Mayor Dunbar on here. He's one of the awardees. That will be here in North Little Rock. And again, if you have something that goes on our calendar, this is the link for you to the calendar, and then this is for submitting events. And next slide. And I will leave everyone with this. We are 168 days until the general election in November. And that's not a lot of time. And not a lot of time for us to do the work. And I know everybody is out there and working hard. And so it's we are ramping up going into the summer and carrying through the fall. But we're 168 days to take this momentum forward with us. And so keep that in mind, if you would, please. As always, thank you all for being here. Special thank you to our guest speakers, Ace, Camille. We appreciate y'all being here. The information you provided is terrific. And going forward, we're going to work through the election season, highlighting candidates as we go along, and then also talking about issues that we know will be playing a major part in the upcoming elections. And so going forward, we hope everyone can join us monthly, the third Tuesday of every month, for our upcoming hub calls. Thank you all for being here, and subject to anything else, that concludes it right on the dot at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Everyone, please take care.